15 days to launch, a ton of things left to do, but nothing's going to stop us now. The Wave Rover 650, a design based on my single-handed ocean voyages. She's small, light, but easy to build, and strong enough to cross any ocean. My name's Alan Mulholland, and this is the Wave Rover story. Well, Rovers, I've always been a planner and a scheduler. In fact, I never actually start anything until I have a good plan in place. Now, I've had to adapt my plan on a daily schedule on account of the weather because we're just so close to our launch date. So I have rain day plans and I have sunny day plans. And that's what this video is all about. Here's a view of the Tiller Flats. It just got its second coat of paint this morning. Believe it or not, we were painting this at about 6 o'clock this morning. And that's on account of the heat warning that we have. It's supposed to get to about 30 degrees today. With the Humidex, that's 35 degrees. So you want to get as much done in the morning as possible. I'll show you what else I'm working on in the shop. It's like I've got a full day's work in, and it's not even 10:30. So here's some of the other things I've been working on this morning. This is the rudder head. Now, the rudder probably didn't take as long to build as the details of the rudder. So the details, by that I mean I have to thicken out the top of the rudder so that we've got a nice bearing surface to make a pretty substantial tiller. All the holes where metal plates will be attached, they've been drilled out and filled. And of course, everything has to be nicely done. And in this case, what I've done is I've created like an epoxy edge all the way around because I know I won't be able to fold the glass neatly over top of that. Of course, all the holes where we're going to do our lashings, they've all been over drilled. And we've also faired this. Now, of course, I didn't do all that this morning. I just worked on the rudder head this morning. Another item I'm working on right here is I've just started working on the Mark III for Wave Rover. The nice thing about this is I didn't have to start from scratch. I have the plans after all. So this should go fairly fast. However, there's a number of steps where you can only glue up so much or fiberglass so much, and you have to wait for it to harden. Then we've got this. I started this morning as well. These are two pieces of 3/8 ply. It might be hard to see that, but I've laminated them together with epoxy, and they'll form the two seats, the port and starboard quarters on the cockpit, or the area where actually I refer to it as the quarterdeck. So this is the quarterdeck seating. And then in the old hovel, the glue-up room, this little thing that looks like a birdhouse, that is for the stern light, and it's already been fiberglassed, and I've just let's see, it's a bit wet. Change the angle. So right here I've drilled out where we'll be attaching it to the solar arch, and the little hole that you see on the inside here, that's where the stern light will be fixed. So obviously it's not finished and it'll be painted. It'll look really nice once it's finished. So now, time to crack on with the Mark III before the real heat of the day sets in, because once that happens, I'm planning on heading into the house probably around noon. So I'll have gotten 6 hours in, and you can see, or if you remember from last year, it's actually on my other channel, Rover's Rest, we built the house, and we built it really thermally efficient, so our heat pump can run in reverse, and it acts as a really efficient air conditioner, and that's where I plan to spend the afternoon. The mast and the battens and the yard and the boom are all standing by. I'll be working on them as the weather allows. Okay, so I'm making the base plate for the Mark III here, and there's probably 1,000 ways to cut a circle. In fact, you could just draw a circle on a piece of ply and then just cut it with a jigsaw, and that'll be fine, and just use a sander because it doesn't have to be perfect. But if you want to get a pretty true circle, find a piece of wood where you can get that 10-inch disc, drill a hole in the center of it, and then find yourself a scrap piece of wood. And then the trick is to make sure it'll reach the saw blade. Okay, that's good. And then okay, so we have it, and it has to be loose enough that you can turn it pretty easily. Yeah, so we have it. Now the next part is, I've already reduced this to 10 inches in diameter. You don't have to do that, but I'm using scrap ply, and this is what I have. So this line right here, line that up with the teeth. Okay, so we'll end up getting a circle that's cut there. Now we just need to get some clamps. I don't really have a lot of clamps right now on account of I'm gluing up the seats for the boat. So hopefully these will hold. You're much better off using C-clamps. Okay, now we want to reduce our blade down to below. Put our hearing protection on and flash up the saw. So there's our disc. There's what it looks like on the underside. It's very true. This will be the base plate for the tower, and it's kind of cool what you get on the underside. It's a diagonal, sort of sloped in cut. You can use that technique for some other project. Anyway, this is how I cut the circles on the table saw. The pulley, the big pulley at the top, you can cut with the very same technique. You can just mount a 3/4 inch piece of plastic and just move your blade up, say about 1/8 of an inch at a time, which for most table saw is 1 full revolution of the handle. Just heading over to the boat here, show you what's happening. Just prepping the bottom for some epoxy tie coat that we'll be putting on in an hour or two. How's it going, Bill?
Well, it's never a bad idea to lay down on the job.
Okay, so we are using TotalBoat, Total Protect, 2-part epoxy primer and barrier coat. So this is like an undercoat that's good for below the water or above, but we're mainly using it from the water line down, and it's a 2-part. So we're mixing this at a ratio of 3:1. We'll be doing it in the cup, and then if we need to thin it, we'll be using the thinner. Just pouring it into one of our used trays. We have our brushes standing by. Got King Bill here to give us a hand, and Mrs. Rover, of course, will be doing the mixing. All right, team, go. Okay, Bill has taken over the stirring of this incredibly thick paint. Bill, what's the technique you just showed me?
You bring the thickened from the bottom up to the top.
Up to the top.
Up to the top. All in a circular motion. Up to the top.
It seems to be that it's mostly in the hips, though, is it?
Oh.
Yeah.
Without the hip motion, you ain't getting a good start.
Very true. Well, we have the epoxy paint on the boat for the last 2 days, and I have a tiny bit of sprinkling happening right now from the rain, but they tell me that we're going to have sunshine later today and tomorrow, so we're going to try to get one of the top coats on the port side there. But I'll show you what I'm working on in the meantime. There's still lots to do, and we're not that far away from launch. My outboard arrived the other day. Haven't taken it out of the box yet, but I'm working on this right now, which is the mount for the Mark III. There's still a little bit more work to go and some fiberglassing, but it's pretty solid. And this is the tiller. The tiller's been glued up. It's white oak, and I'll be shaping that a little bit later. And then inside here I have the stern light. So this will be attached, if you can imagine, underneath the solar panels up in the arch. This is the tower unit for the Mark III. So I had to miniaturize the Mark III to make it work, which is sort of interesting. And then these are the seats. So Wave Rover doesn't have a typical cockpit. Instead, it has a quarterdeck, and then in the quarters of the quarterdeck will be seating, and these will be the seats. This is the underside, and these are the attachment points. And then I'm going to end up lashing them. So that's what these holes, they'll get drilled out a bit later. Anyway, as you have heard me said 1,000 times, I've got a lot to do. Time to crack on. So when it comes time to drill out holes like these, you want to make sure you have a fair bit of epoxy left. So I try to get the holes, small holes drilled in the center. Then I come back with the actual bit I want to use, which is, in this case, they're 1/2-inch holes. And I'm going to drill them out to, am I in the frame here? I drill them out to, this is 5/16, so this will leave a fair bit of epoxy. I also only do about halfway down, and then I come from the other side. And that way we end up with a nice bit of epoxy all the way around. I'll just show you what I've done there. Let's see the camera. So you can kind of see, I'm trying to show you all angles here. So you can see it's actually epoxy that the lashings will be up against, because that's what this is. This is a seat, and it's going to get lashed over top of the structure of the stern pulpit. Well, the grass is just so green after all the rain we've had, but it is clearing. I believe I'm going to get a chance to get some paint on the port side, but right now, despite this high humidity, I mean, it's really humid. We'll get a little bit of sanding done on the quarterdeck seat. And that's what we should be looking at for the holes for the lashing. And then on the underside, we'll have some pretty big gauge screws that will be holding it to the steel work. And then this is approximately where the horizontal piece of the stern push pit is going. I need to put a couple of spacers on here to make up the difference. Anyway, that'll all make sense once I install it. After this, I'll be putting it down because we'll be S1ing all these. I did contemplate putting fiberglass on the upper surface here, but frankly, we're running a little low on fiberglass right now. There's pretty much out of it. So the little bit I have that remains, little offcuts, I'll be using it on the Mark III, which, you know, I consider a higher priority than the seat. This will last a very, very, very long time. It's marine ply. And, you know, some of you out there are under the opinion that marine ply with water on it starts to rot right away. Well, this will be a really good sort of learning curve for everyone, how long this will last. And I suspect it's going to last years, you know, and indefinitely if we maintain it. So this is just a little test fit of the sail. This is the first time I get to see it all fully unfolded. And let me just explain to you what's happening here. So this old 2x4 that's running vertically, that's representing the mast. So the sail is actually canted forward. If you can see, let me bring it in here. If you can see right along here, this would be plumb up on the boat. It would be absolutely 90 degrees to the horizon. And then what I've done is with this other 2x4, I've set this up at 90 degrees to what would be the mast. And then I've calculated the height difference right at the end of the sail, which is 3'2". But the sail itself is going to be about 1.5 feet off the deck at the mast, so that means it's the clew is going to be about 4'8" off of a horizontal line from where the mast is. That's pretty good. That'll give me lots of height. And the other thing I'm checking is, so this is the actual boom. It hasn't been shaped, or well, it hasn't been set up for attachment points yet, but I've checked all of the sailmaker's work, and it's exactly the length that we had decided upon, or maybe more accurately, I had designed this sail and he built it precisely to what I was after. And up here, I'm just randomly checking one of our actual battens. Again, I made them a little oversized until I had an opportunity to stretch the sail out. And then this is the yard up here with the yard fitting. I'll have to fit that onto the yard. So that's next week's work, or maybe I should say next rain day. I can work on the mast and the battens, the yard, and the boom. But look at this sail. It's actually, let me get it in the orientation. That makes more sense. So this is more or less what you would see. Just take a quick gander inside the boat. I didn't get as much of an opportunity this week on account of the weather. When it turned good outside, I had to get the outside painting done. But having said that, we did manage to get the inside painting pretty much finished. The floor up in the forward cabin needs one more coat. It's looking great though. And that's going to be it for now for the finish on the forward cabin. Not quite the same quality as the aft cabin here, but it's certainly, we're just running out of time. So yeah, we're at a position now where I can start probably on the weekend, start putting fitting objects, trying to fit all of our, well, for example, here we're going to have the mast step and lights and bilge pump and the sorts. But she is looking lovely. Anyway, next video, you should see a big change on the inside. Well, Rovers, next week I should be doing a lot of the final inside and outside fittings. Now, on a separate note, there are 28 Rover Coins left, which, as you know, is the currency of adventure. I'd like to make an appeal to all of you who've already purchased them, and that is, I'd like you to send me photos of the prominent place you've put your coins. I'd like to post that on the channel if you don't mind. Anyway, folks, there's a lot to do. Thanks for watching, and forge your own adventure. Well, the Wave Rover patrons, with their pledges of support, really do make the creation of these videos possible. Now, if you'd like to know more about Wave Rover's patron page and benefactors bulkhead, I have links to both those pages in the video description. Now, another way to help Wave Rover, and it doesn't cost you a dime, is by sharing our content on your social media. So now, as always, Rovers, thanks for watching. Give us one more.